Something I've noticed in recent years in my personal life, but also just on social media and in the world in general, is the whole concept of Christmas no longer feeling like Christmas. And I've seen it a lot. This is kind of something that people are having a hard time with, just with the idea of change and things just feeling different, things just feeling off. A lot of people feel like it's just kind of a negative experience now or that it's disappointing. And I think it can be caused by a number of things. I think in any scenario, it helps a lot to find the root of why you feel a certain way, because then it can help you apply the right solutions and tools to your specific situation and to your specific feelings. So today, I'm kind of just going to be talking about why I think this is happening and why I think people are starting to feel differently towards Christmas. Now, listen, it might sound silly to you that I'm talking about this, but I think it's a lot deeper than what it seems to be on the surface. And it's weird because this Christmas has been so amazing. I've been having such a good time with my entire family, and I've been having so much fun, but there's still this weird feeling. There's still this bittersweet feeling. So yeah, I'm kind of just going to be talking about the different things that I think are playing a role in this nowadays and why people might feel a certain way. It's different for everyone. It might be a combination of all of these things. It might be just one of these things. But yeah, and I think it really can be beneficial to reflect and to try to figure out why you might be feeling a certain way and why Christmas might feel different to you now. But before I start, can I just show you how cute this snow globe is? It's so cute. And I only realized after I bought it that it plays music. It's so cute. So, first of all, something that I think plays a really big role into people feeling like this is the whole idea of change. I think depending on who you are, change might be easier, change might be harder. I know that for me personally, in my personal life, when things change, it's really hard for me. Christmas is kind of like jumping in your face, the fact that things are different and the fact that things are different compared to your childhood, because it's all about youth, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, Christmas is more than that. Christmas is about spending time with people and being generous and all these things. Um, but I think a lot of it is surrounded around childhood. The whole idea of like waking up on Christmas morning. It's all surrounded around childhood. And I think it's kind of like rubbing in your face the fact that things are different now and the fact that things change, even like over the years. Like, Christmas is not always going to stay the same because you're getting older. Like, I know that in my personal life, like, all my siblings and I are getting older. Christmas is not necessarily the same way it used to be. We obviously still to like the same traditions and we still have our own way of doing it, but things do start to feel different after a while. And I tend to be someone who gets like so nostalgic. Like, I will get nostalgic about everything. Like, in a month from now, I'm probably going to be nostalgic about what I'm doing tomorrow, and I'm nostalgic about a year ago. You know what I mean? I just get nostalgic about everything. So especially when it comes to things about my childhood, like if I'm visiting a place that I went to during my childhood or just Christmas in general, because it was such a prominent part of my childhood, and I'm so grateful to my parents for making it such an amazing experience. But it's hard seeing those things changing. It's hard being hit with the harsh reality that things are not how they used to be and that you're getting older. When you're younger, Christmas is kind of just being curated for you. It's just something that you're experiencing. But as you get older, you start to play a part in what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, when you're younger, before you really have a comprehension of it all, you're kind of just experiencing it and you're just receiving the gifts, and it's so much fun to you, and you hardly even know what's going on, but you're just having a lot of fun with it. But then as you get older, you're getting the gifts for people, and even though it's an amazing feeling gifting things to people, it feels different. It doesn't feel how it used to be. There's something like scary about being in control of it and controlling the outcome and being the reason for the magic that's being created. Because when you're younger, it feels magical, and then as you get older, you still want it to feel funny, you still want to have a really good time, but it just doesn't feel the same anymore. And I think that's playing a really big role, is we're kind of getting hit with the fact that things are different now. I think this is especially prominent for people who remember the pandemic really well. I know that me personally, when the pandemic started and everything shut down, I was 13, and I think there was a lot that changed during the pandemic. So it almost like hit us all with a shock when things went back to normal and we were experiencing Christmas again. Then Christmas never just went back to feeling the way it did. I think during the pandemic, maybe we thought it was just, oh, it's because of the pandemic. Obviously, things are going to be different. Things are going to feel different. Everything feels different, you know? But I think Christmas, especially, it never went back to how it felt because we didn't realize, like, it's not necessarily the pandemic. It's not necessarily the change of environment and the change of things. It's because we got older. And it's really hard to face that and accept that. So I think that's something that's playing a really big role into why Christmas may not feel the same, you know? You need to kind of learn to accept the beauty of the change. You know, change can be terrifying sometimes, but nothing changes if nothing changes. You know what I mean? You can't just stay in the same place forever. And it's obviously easier said than done. Like, I experience so much difficulty with change sometimes. It could be literally the smallest thing and it's going to be hard for me to adjust, but after a little bit of time you get used to it and it starts to get better. So even though this whole concept is much bigger than, like, let's say changing the layout of your room, you know, it's so much bigger than that. But with anything at all, over time it gets better. So I think that's just one of those things. It's over time accepting the fact that it's not the way it was, but that's not a bad thing. You know, it's not a bad thing because it can't stay the same all the time. It can't stay the same forever. Um, but yeah, I think it's just it can just be really hard, especially because like Christmas is such a nostalgic time for me. You know, when I think about Christmas when I was younger, we have our little traditions and it was so much fun waking up in the morning and opening all the gifts, and then we would usually go to my grandmother's house and I'd see all my family. And on Christmas Eve, we had all these traditions, and it was just such a prominent part of my childhood. So I think the fact that we're all getting older, it's a really harsh reality. Next, something that I think plays a really big role in it is how Christmas is presented in the media. And I'm not just talking social media, I'm just talking in general, like the things that we consume. Obviously on social media, it can be a really big thing. We all know it creates a false narrative and blurred realities, and things are not always how they seem. I feel like by saying this, I sound like a grandma, but it's really true. Like, it has changed so many things, including it being such an easy way to allow for comparison. And even though we know that it's not always how they seem, it's really hard to believe it and understand it when the things you're exposed to, the things that are being presented to you seem so real. It's just really important to remember that it's not all true. We all know that it's not always a positive, and it can really affect so many things, especially when it comes to your mental health. And especially with Christmas, there is so much comparison when it comes to the Christmas hauls and just how Christmas is presented and people going on vacations. You know what I mean? It can just create such a negative, and it can cause you to start to compare those people's situations that aren't even necessarily completely true. It can cause you to compare them to your own situation, making you unhappy with what you're experiencing. No, it's not even just social media that affects it. I also think it's just the media created around Christmas, you know, like the Christmas movies and everything. It might sound stupid, but it's true that it can really cause you to feel bad about your own situation. You know, Christmas is correlated with so many happy feelings and so many good experiences, you know, like all the Christmas movies that you watch, they're always happy. And that might not be the reality for everyone, but no one's going to want to watch a depressing Christmas movie. You know what I mean? Even if that may be your reality, even if it may not be super magical exactly how it is presented in the Christmas movies, no one's going to want to make a realistic Christmas movie because no one's going to want to watch that. Everyone wants to watch the cheesy Hallmark movies, you know what I mean? Because it just makes you feel good. But then when you start to compare those situations to your own situation, you can start to think there's something wrong with you. And you can start to think that, oh, why is my life not like that? But You're comparing your life to a situation that is fabricated in the way they exactly want it to be. You know what I mean? So I just think it's really important to remember that, like, things are not always how they seem. The media is such a big misrepresentation of how things really are sometimes. And I'm not saying that some people's lives aren't like that. Some people's Christmases are exactly how they're presented in the Christmas movies. But it's not every situation, and it's really important to remember that. Even if you're having an amazing experience, you're going to expect it to feel magical and perfect. Even if you're not subconsciously thinking that, there's an underlying factor, there's an underlying feeling in you that is lacking that feeling that people experience in the Christmas movies. And you're like, where is that feeling? Why don't I feel like that? It's because it's not necessarily real. It's fabricated to be perfect so that when you watch it, you feel good. I think sometimes also consuming the media can also cause you to feel bittersweet, because I know that so many of the Christmas movies are nostalgic to me. And then I think this just goes back to connect it to the whole feeling of change and things not being how they were during your childhood. It's the whole idea of the movies being about kids experiencing Christmas and all this, and it just doesn't feel that way anymore. Lastly, something that I think plays a really big role and is something that we don't even necessarily always consider is literally the time of year. Christmas is during a time where things are changing so much weather-wise, you know what I mean? Like, it's getting dark earlier depending on where you live. It's cold and it's snowy and it's just not enjoyable. But during the Christmas season, it's enjoyable because you associate Christmas with getting all warm inside and it getting dark outside and it's snowy. But then Christmas just ends so abruptly. Like, depending on what you celebrate religiously, some people celebrate the 12 days of Christmas, and Christmas is an ongoing thing and they continue to celebrate it. But that doesn't always necessarily happen in the real world. The Christmas season versus Christmas Day and Christmas Eve are such different experiences. You know, the second the clock strikes midnight and it's November 1st, the music is playing in the stores and out in the world, and there's Christmas decorations everywhere. And the whole idea of Christmas is being so hyped up and it's so exciting. But then when you compare that to the actual day, you don't even have a time to transition. Christmas just ends abruptly, and then all of a sudden, you're not hearing Christmas music anymore. People are taking down their Christmas decorations. You're not going Christmas shopping. It just changes so quickly. And then all of a sudden, it's cold and dark and snowy. But now you're associating that with winter, and you no longer can look forward to Christmas. And there's so much science behind why people tend to be sad in unison around this time of year. You know what I mean? There's the decrease of serotonin because you're not having as much sun exposure. And then when you don't have as much sun exposure, there's a decrease in vitamin D, which can then affect your circadian rhythm, which is basically your body's internal clock. So then all of these things are changing, and then you're dealing with Christmas having just ended, and now you no longer associate the cold and the dark with good. Now you're just waiting for winter to be over and you're just waiting for it to get warm again. So, yeah, I think it's something that plays a really big role, and it's not always something we necessarily consider. I think it's just Christmas, the Christmas season is so prominent and it's such a big deal. And then all of a sudden, the second it hits Boxing Day, it's over. Like, you're just not experiencing it anymore. And I think it's a lot of other things phase out and fade out, but this is just a situation where things just finish so abruptly. And I think just in general, like, even just with holidays in general, like, the second Halloween is done, we're moving on to Christmas. And then once Christmas is done, there's Valentine's Day things out, you know? It's like we're always looking towards the future and not focusing on the present. And I know I'm reading way too much into this. Like, the stores are just trying to make money. They're not going to make money if they're selling Christmas decorations in February. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think it kind of symbolizes the whole idea of, like, moving too quickly. Like, can't we just take a little bit of time to settle down for the transitioning period and then we move on? I think we just kind of need to hold on to it a little bit longer, or just not make it so intense and then stop it so abruptly. You know, we can make some changes to affect how this is making us feel. But yeah, if we look at, like, the science element of it again, I feel like Christmas creates the serotonin because it's such an exciting time and all the music and everything. And then you take that serotonin away, and then it's almost like your body didn't adjust to the time change and things being darker and colder because you went straight from it being bright to the Christmas season, which replaced that lacking serotonin, and then you take it away so abruptly, and then it's gone, and then you're just hit with this shock. You don't have time to transition back to normal life. I think you can also kind of connect it to like post event depression because I tend to look forward to certain events sometimes for so long and then they end and I experience them and then I'm kind of like, what do I look forward to now? So I think that might also be something. It's like because the buildup of Christmas is so big, once it's over, it hits you harder. It's kind of like if you go somewhere and then you leave, depending on how long you were there and how good the experience was, it's going to hit you harder and it's going to be harder to move on from it. But yeah, so I think Christmas feeling different is so much more if you dive deeper into it. It's so much more than just what you see surface level. Like, if you think about it surface level, you're just like, oh, it's just not the same it was. But when you look at all the factors that could be playing into it, it starts to make a lot of sense why sometimes it can create such negative feelings and why it may not always feel so magical anymore. Um, which is really hard to face sometimes, but you can come up with solutions. And by figuring out what the root cause of it is and figuring out why you feel this way, it can be so much easier to find the solutions and start to feel better about the situation. And this applies to anything in your life. You know what I mean? It's really hard to find solutions for something when you don't know what's causing it. So if you take time to self reflect, it can really lend a good hand into that. So I hope that today's episode it kind of helped you understand maybe why you might be feeling this way. Maybe it was just one of these things. Maybe it's a combination of all of them. But just figuring out the root of why you might be feeling this way is the first step. It's such an important part of the whole process of dealing with something and finding the right tools and the right solutions for it. So yeah, I hope you had a really good Christmas. I know this episode was kind of a mood killer, but I think it's something that's been on my mind, so I kind of just wanted to talk about it and hopefully it helped someone out. But yeah, I hope you had a really good Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If not, I hope you had good holidays. You're having good holidays. I hope everyone is healthy and happy because it feels like everyone and their mother is literally sick right now. Like, if you're not coughing and sniffling right now, you're going to be coughing and sniffling, or you just gotten over coughing and sniffling. So just be cautious. Thank you for listening today. It was really nice to be back. It was only my second episode, so it was still a little scary starting it out. But then once I started talking, it got a little more comfortable, and hopefully over time it'll get more comfortable and it'll just become like a sixth sense. But yeah, thank you for listening. And hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye. Love you.